This summer opens up to us a little different than last year. Then we had to more heavily restrict movement to get a handle on the pandemic. But now we're preparing for the possibilities that accompany a vaccine. So with measures being relaxed, do you have travel plans for this summer? If you do, Jamaica Magazine has your summer travel guide and more. Welcome to today's magazine. I'm Theodore Henry. We have quite a journey ahead, and I'll tell you what to pack after the day's news.
For those of us who do not believe that COVID is real and that it is here, have you been to one of those hospitals where the wards are overflowing with patients who are trying to breathe and talk at the same time, but find it so impossible to do so? Or have you seen someone die in front of you, trying to make the next breath to stay alive? So my fellow Jamaicans and colleagues, whether you believe it or not, COVID is real. So I implore you, social distance. Wash your hands, wear your mask, sanitize. Along with that, we need to keep our immune system nice and healthy, so you drink lots of water, eat your fruits and vegetables. But whether we believe it or not, COVID is here, it is here to stay, it's going to be the new norm. And remember, when you behave irresponsible, you expose all of us. So do the responsible thing.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, July 7. The government of Jamaica has condemned as heinous the assassination of Haitian President, His Excellency Jovenel Moïse. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the assassination is a stain on Haiti and a sorrowful time for the region. Mr. Holness remembered President Moïse as a man committed to seeing Haiti take her place in the world. His message was delivered by Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, during this morning's virtual post-cabinet press briefing.
All of us in the region have been closely watching the developments in our sister country, Haiti, and we have been offering our support and best wishes for their return to peace and stability. We continue to await additional news on developments, including any action to be taken by CARICOM or indeed other regional and hemispheric organizations, noting that the United Nations, the OAS, and indeed CARICOM have all recently spoken and or issued reports in respect of matters there.
In local news, the National Works Agency is estimating that it will cost the government $803 million to remedy damage caused by Tropical Storm Elsa. The figure represents a preliminary assessment done by the NWA across 177 roads affected by heavy rains on the weekend. Of the $803 million, $443 million will be used to clean and clear roadways and drains of silt and debris. $360 million will be used to make roads more accessible. Prime Minister Andrew Holness gave the update in Parliament yesterday, indicating that this work will be carried out over the next 2 weeks.
These costs are based on equipment time, using standard rates and materials for filling washed out areas. These costs cover road maintenance, drain cleaning, creating access and patching. No cost for rehabilitation and other permanent repairs are included.
The Prime Minister says as at Monday afternoon, there were no blocked roadways. He says the NWA will continue its assessment of damage to include all structures in areas where the intensity of rainfall was highest. With the start of the 2021 hurricane season surpassing the same period of last year, Mr. Holness is urging ministries and agencies responsible for coordinating disaster management to maintain a state of readiness for any eventuality. In the meantime, members of Parliament have been given 21 days to complete the first phase of the hurricane mitigation program. Government had disbursed $100 million under the program to carry out hurricane preparation activities in constituencies across the island. The National Works Agency is responsible for assessing the works submitted by the parliamentarians.
For those of us who are members of Parliament who have not yet done the first phase of our mitigation program, please ensure that this is done before the end of the month. meaning that if you have drains in your constituency, select the most critical ones that impact the greatest number of persons and have those drains cleaned early.
Prime Minister Holness says he's working with the NWA to see if additional funds can be made available to undertake works in other areas. And local government minister Desmond McKenzie is urging persons living in low-lying and flood-prone areas to create an evacuation plan. Mr. McKenzie points out that rescue officials may not be able to assist during the passage of a tropical system.
Areas that are flat, that are prone to flooding, it makes no sense to stay there because I'm going to be blunt. After the impact has started, it is going to be difficult for me as the minister with responsibility to say to the Jamaica Fire Brigade or to the first responders, go into an area to undertake rescue operations.
Mr. McKenzie made the statements during a tour of shelters in Clarendon on the weekend. He stressed that once a tropical system is forecast to impact the country, residents are given 24 to 36 hours to evacuate and should seek a shelter or find someone to stay with. After that, persons should remain indoors until the system has passed the country. In other news, the report on the island's long-awaited sexual harassment bill has been tabled in the House of Representatives. The report of the Joint Select Committee was tabled in the lower house Tuesday. Gender Minister Olivia Grange says the committee, which began its work during the 2019-2020 parliamentary session, convened 24 meetings.
Today represents a significant milestone in our long journey to provide protection to many women and men who are suffering the harmful effects of sexual harassment.
Among the changes to be made to the bill is a fit and proper criteria to govern the appointment of members of the Sexual Harassment Tribunal. Employers will be required to maintain a confidential sexual harassment register, and the categories under which persons can be sexually harassed will be widened. The Sexual Harassment Bill was first tabled on October 16, 2019, with the Joint Select Committee holding its first meeting on November 28 the same year. And finally, the Airports Authority of Jamaica, AAJ, has spent $5 million to purchase tablets for students since the start of the year. Transport and Mining Minister Robert Montague made the announcement recently. He says the funds were provided from the AAJ's profits as part of its corporate social responsibility program.
It is in response to the Ministry of Education's initiative of one tablet or one laptop per child, and it is aimed for children who are not on path but still need. And we have spent $5 million, and what we did, we distributed those tablets in the catchment area where we have airports or aerodromes. And we intend to spend some more, because money spent in education is not money spent, it is money invested.
Minister Montague was speaking at the recent handover of a $48 million police post at the Ian Fleming Airport in St. Mary. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
It's no secret that a number of destinations across the world have relaxed travel guidelines. And to me, that sounds like more world traveling this summer. Of course, traversing our very own island home is also worthy of a postmark on your travel calendar. If that's the case, here are a few guidelines you may need to take note of.
Remember that period when air travel wasn't being accommodated and summer was at a standstill? Well, now with vaccines both a reality and a possibility, much of the world seems to be stepping out from its cocoon. By all indications, summer 2021 is signaling a new chapter in pandemic living, even for us here in Jamaica. Some of us are fully vaccinated, and a number of destinations across the world have relaxed travel guidelines. So it does sound like more world traveling will be happening this summer. But as you pack your sunscreen and repellent, don't forget your sanitizer and our 2021 summer travel guidelines.
Safe to say, many travelers will be taking advantage of the summer opportunities that we spent over a year wistfully dreaming of. If your travel destination is right here in Jamaica, here are your guidelines. First, are you fully vaccinated? People are considered fully vaccinated 2 weeks after their second dose in a 2-dose series, such as Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, or 2 weeks after a single-dose vaccine, such as Johnson & Johnson's vaccine. But even after vaccination, you may still need to continue taking precaution. Before you travel anywhere, make sure you understand and follow all airline and destination requirements and check the current COVID-19 situation in your destination. Those coming from outside the island, whether you're a citizen or visitor, you are required to have a negative COVID-19 test result received no more than 3 days before travel. You're also still required to complete your travel authorization form on the Jam COVID website at least 2 days before flying. After arriving in Jamaica for fully vaccinated people, your quarantine period remains at 8 days. You will have to self-monitor for COVID-19 symptoms and get tested if you develop any.
For fully vaccinated persons, they now have the option as of July 1 of taking an approved PCR test, and upon presentation of negative results, they can be released from the quarantine order.
And for unvaccinated people, you're required to quarantine for 14 days, even if you test negative. Avoid being around people who are at increased risk for severe illness, whether you get tested or not.
So we are not lifting the quarantine rule of 14 days for persons who are not vaccinated. If you travel to Jamaica and you are not fully vaccinated, you must quarantine for 14 days.
If you're venturing off island, it's most likely going to be via airplane. And we can't disregard that there are still some pandemic pains when it comes to flying. So, if you haven't been on a flight in a while, here are some tips to keep in mind for an easier flying experience this summer. Still mask up. Even if you're fully vaccinated, it doesn't mean you should throw away your mask supply. Some airports provide complimentary masks and hand sanitizer, and many airlines distribute disinfecting wipes upon boarding so passengers can clean their own area, just as an added measure for assurance. Empty seats are getting fewer. If you're flying this summer, you can expect flights to be more crowded and possibly sold out. That's partly because the effort many airlines make to block middle seats between passengers during the early stages of the pandemic have retracted. Some requirements continue. Some restrictions like negative COVID-19 test result are still in place, especially for international travel. A number of airlines are making it easier to get tested with airport testing options for passengers headed to some Caribbean islands and other places. Some airlines will turn away passengers who do not have the appropriate documentation available before boarding. Remember, regulations can change within destinations, so when planning a trip, review what is needed as your travel date approaches.
What to pack? Even as more countries relax mask guidelines, generally speaking, still pack your face mask and shields, and never forget your hand sanitizers. If you're going offshore, learn about the destination's entertainment or cultural attractions accessible to visitors and any rules in place. Here in Jamaica, you'll be allowed to visit places like the theaters, cinemas, and regulated hotels. For those most excited to dip their toes in the sand and soak up the sun, Jamaican beaches, rivers, water parks, attractions, and zoos are opening up, but observe the daily timestamps.
As many parts of the world remain in the pains of the pandemic and Jamaica proceeds with caution this summer, travel can bring a great deal of uncertainty, but paradoxically too, much delight.
While you're outside, we also want you to take note of our wildlife, our insects, animals, and plants. But don't just take note of them. We want all efforts working collectively to protect and conserve these features of our island home. Here's a representative from NEPA with further encouragements along that thread.
Bow your ears for a bit. Hear the trees wailing or the leaves grabbing your unwanted carbon dioxide, insects making a shrilling sound, and the tuneful noise of some unnamed and rarely seen creature reverberating within the bushes. Now open your eyes a bit wider. Watch ants band together in groups of hundreds, or wasps gathering wood shavings to build their next home, and birds preparing some sweet meal for your liking. All these make up the wildlife, those organisms that grow or live wild in any area.
Wildlife conservation is an attempt to preserve either a species or a population of a particular species, and by doing so, you in effect are also preserving its habitat because the species doesn't exist on its own. And there are different types of conservation. You have what they call in situ conservation, which is conservation within its natural habitat, and that is usually the aim of all most, if not all, conservation efforts. And you have ex situ conservation, where you're trying to preserve the animals in a not so natural state, for example, in a zoo or in a controlled park area. And again, the goal is usually when their natural habitat is improved or protected in some way, then they try to repatriate those species back into their natural habitat.
And preserving the wildlife should be an important part of the human agenda. Here's why. It promotes the continuation of native plant species. Small animals like bees, butterflies, and our very own doctor bird play an important role in food production. Conserving these animals, protecting these animals, means that we are ultimately helping in pollination. It increases medicinal value. Plants are a major source of medication, but so too are animals. Take, for example, how research shows that the venom from the cobra can be used as an ingredient in making the medications for leprosy, or how lobsters can be used as antifungals. It's a way to preserve our heritage. Some plants and animals are unique to specific countries, so conserving those wildlife means conserving those traditional aspects of our culture, things like the blue maho plant or the yellow pui tree of Jamaica, and even the lions and leopards of Africa. It enhances food security by protecting natural habitats from degradation and forests against deforestation. The availability of a variety of food products increases.
Everyone needs to play a part. We have to understand that preserving the wildlife, it's not necessarily just for how it can benefit us, but we're also looking at the future generations. And so each person needs to be a little bit more responsible in what they're doing, where they dispose of garbage, cutting off areas and so forth. Understand the law, the Wildlife Protection Act, for example. One basic feature of it is that all native birds are protected. Don't catch the birds. We have hunting season, that is something that is actually regulated. But besides that, we try to encourage persons not to take matters into their own hands at times. Sometimes we have some species that we're trying to protect that are inherently can be a dangerous species, like a crocodile, for example. We encourage persons not to go out and try to catch those animals, but to call NEPA.
Here's your chance to do your part to conserve the wildlife.
I am Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, and with the support of the European Union, we intend to build a first-class justice system. The contribution of the European Union to the Jamaica justice system is enormous. We believe that this partnership with the European Union has been beneficial to Jamaica, and we hope that further assessment will demonstrate that the partnership between the European Union and Jamaica is one that has not only been game-changing, but will continue in the years ahead. The most significant achievement, in my opinion, was the Court of Appeal. Before the Court of Appeal was rebuilt, only 7 judges could have been appointed. Now we can appoint 12 judges, plus the president of the court, and this will ensure that at that level in the Court of Appeal, cases will move expeditiously. It will set the tone for how we engage in backlog reduction.
So earlier we mentioned that many people took their vaccines and are ready for travel. And for those who are yet to take the jab, getting it is still possible. We now give you a feature with health experts encouraging you to take this action.
Vaccination is not new to Jamaica. The fears of vaccination, I believe, especially given the situation with this pandemic, are to a large degree unfounded because we have our own history to rely on. And indeed, with new births in the island, it is our public health requirement that they are vaccinated for various diseases. And that goes on almost on a daily basis. And we do go back to the clinics for vaccination for booster shots.
This is a disease that we have to take seriously. Many people, it is true, luckily, the majority of persons who get COVID may have some symptoms, some have no symptoms at all, especially if you're young. But if you are older, then as many as 1 out of 6 who gets COVID, who is over 70 years of age, is likely to die. And if you're over 80 years of age, then 1 out of 4 may die. So our best hope to control this epidemic is the vaccine. Now, I have the privilege of being on the World Health Organization working group that is reviewing all the vaccines that have been prepared to protect people against COVID. We've looked at this vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine. The World Health Organization has approved it as highly effective and safe.
If I take the vaccine, then I personally am safe from the disease. But if I'm the only one that takes the vaccine, it doesn't really do any public good because the disease, the virus is still around and still infecting. And indeed, though I am vaccinated and I may not get ill, I could still carry the virus. This is the beginning of the end. It is not the end. We are right there now, where if we behave responsibly, personally responsible, and as a community responsible, then we can bring the end of this pandemic earlier. A few things that we have to understand. One, it is the scarcity of the supply. Once you introduce pricing as a means of rationing how the vaccine is distributed, then what it means is that people who can afford the price will get it, and those who can't won't. And that is not good for social stability. The second issue is to ensure proper regulation, right? We need to be able, with certainty, that the persons, that we have captured the information of the persons who got the vaccine, and be able at very short notice with, if anything went wrong, especially in terms of the batches and how they are distributed. So tracking is important.
We're asking that the country, all of our people, support us. When it's time to be vaccinated, let's do it in the orderly manner that we can. Let's make ourselves, our entire country proud of just us accepting the vaccine and doing it the way we know we should. And remember, we're trying our very best to ensure that no one is left behind.
We've been talking much about summer 2021 and travel plans for the period, but the truth is many of us aren't ready just yet to hit the streets. The good thing is that summer at home can be just as engaging, especially if you follow a simple list of things to do. First on your list, number 1, add a TV show with a new language to your watch list. What better way to travel through the streets of France or some Scandinavian country than by exploring their language? Various streaming platforms now have way more TV shows, which means more content to help us travel vicariously through our screens. And of course, subtitles are always an option. Number 2, you could try geocache. Geocaching is a form of global treasure hunt of people looking for caches or hidden objects. Think of it as a series of hide-and-seek games where the hiders provide online clues for the seekers. The seekers will have to use GPS devices to find the hidden caches. Just start with a single click to register online. Number 3, online shopping is always an option. So you won't get to see your favorite clothing stores across the Atlantic Ocean, but their contents can be as close as you want it. This summer, the possibilities of what you want to purchase are endless. So, if your summer will be at home, there are a lot of engaging things you can do to make it a memorable one while tightening your bond with family and friends. After all, that's the bond we need to help make our country the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We're ending here, but you could probably start your summer planning from now. And of course, Jamaica Magazine is still committed to being a part of your holiday plans because we bring new content to you each and every day. And our repeats are just a click away on our YouTube channel. There's also content you can view on the JIS's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. So from all of us here at the JIS, I'm Theodore Henry. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.